So, what happens when you get a spiritual medium and a trauma informed life coach together? Well, in today's episode, me and Dr. Isela Garcia are having a really unscripted conversation about trauma healing and spirituality. We talk about nervous system work. We talk about how mindset work didn't work for me and what changed for me when I started to do nervous system work. We talk about spiritual awakening, spiritual gifts, and so much more. This episode, as I went back and listened to it, blew my mind. And believe it or not, we filmed or recorded this episode several months back, and we just hadn't, released it live because we were really just getting together to talk about trauma and to talk about how we were going to help people. And I thought it was so valuable that I wanted to share it here. And at the very end, as you make it to the end, you'll see that I let the film keep rolling. And you'll see how we started to talk together about, like, how do we actually come together and serve humanity? So if you find that you're being called to go deeper with this work, I want to invite you, and we are so excited to tell you that our Sacred Journey Within program is launching this July 2025, and we invite you to join the waitlist now. All you have to do is go to the description and click on the waitlist link and add yourself to the waitlist, and you'll be first to be notified when it is live. All right, let's take a deep breath, open our hearts, and drop into this episode.
I have a question for you. I think we've talked about this at other times, but the question is, when I first came up to you and I asked, or I had introduced kind of what I did in terms of my intuition and mediumship. I don't even know how much I shared or what I said exactly, but the journey from, I think your coaching understanding of self was from an intellectual place,
Yes.
right? Very much from an intellectual place. And so then your experience, as we started to connect and we started talking about our emotional selves and then even into our sacred self, what was that like for you? Because some people who are kind of like, oh, that's a little weird or different, right? I'm uncomfortable with that. Like, what was that experience like for you when I started to bring up like the woo-woo stuff?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I was sort of open to the idea that what I believed about the woo-woo stuff or spirituality in general or the sacred self was not really right, or not, I don't want to use the word right. It just didn't feel right. It didn't feel true. And so I was kind of open. And for me, I just wanted to learn more. Let's learn more. But when you shared with me that I had unhealed trauma in my body, I literally felt like, what? Like, it was almost like foreign language to me, because I thought, well, I've gone to the therapist and I've shared all my stories tons of times. How do you actually heal that? And I felt like I was like a balloon on a string, my head up. And I thought, if I could just change my thoughts better, if I could just, if I could be better at changing my thoughts, then I could be different, right? But the truth was, every time you started talking about the emotional body, the emotional aspect, I realized, oh, I'm so disconnected from my emotional self because I'm coping everywhere. I'm coping with social media. I'm coping with food. I'm coping with alcohol. I'm coping with Netflix. I'm just checked out.
Mhm.
And I had already had an introduction to Eckhart Tolle and the power of now and presence. And I struggled to be in the present moment. And there was something that you said after we started getting to know each other and I started coming to your group, was that I didn't have to like sit and meditate for a long time. I could just practice being in the present moment, like throughout my day, like while I'm washing dishes or when I'm walking. And you were like, just be mindful in your walk and take out the earbuds. So I started doing those little things. So that is the part that really changed the way I was looking at how I could heal as a whole. But I will tell you some of the stuff as far as spirituality, right? The sacred self, there are some things that you've said that I'm like, what? Wait, what? Like, the idea that this is Earth school,
Right.
and that our soul has a journey to go through.
Mhm.
Like, all of that was foreign language to me. But when you shared it, it felt real in my body. It felt true. Right. And I could see, oh, yeah, I went through all of these, walked through all of these things in my life, and it's taught me these lessons. Right. But I had never seen it talked about like that because I was just full of shame about all my like circumstances, right? All the trauma, full of shame, because that's the way that I looked at life was like, if you had those bad things happen to you, then something must be wrong with you. Something must be wrong with you. But when you said, oh, actually, you're on a spiritual journey, you're on a journey and you're learning and you're, evolving. Then I was like, oh, okay. Then it's not so much about something being wrong with me. I'm actually walking through exactly what I'm supposed to walk through on this earth so I can learn what I'm supposed to learn and, be more of myself. So I was kind of like, whoa, where are we going here? But I was open to it.
That's really, there's so many things there with what you said. I think the first thing, when I was talking about meditation versus mindfulness, right? I I think that there are a lot of people who are teachers who give rules around how to meditate. I remember you have to sit in a chair because if you lie down, you might fall asleep, and that's not what you want to do. You want to sit in chair, feet on the floor, so that your feet are grounded. It's like there are all these rules, and then you get somebody else who says you can lie down and it's okay if you fall asleep, and they're like, just tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. And I realized many years ago when I first started trying to figure it out for myself is that it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that makes us uncomfortable because we want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. But it doesn't matter. And this is where the intuitiveness comes into play. What works for you? And so one of the things that I have learned through this whole journey of my own is that you start little. You start little. And for a lot of us, we're in this all or nothing kind of idea that either I do it all and do it perfect, or I don't do it at all, right? Especially if you are a perfectionist, And so this idea of you don't have to meditate 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 2 hours a day. You do not need to do that. Now, do you want to eventually do that? Maybe that will work for you, but let's start with just getting present. Let's
Yes.
just start with just noticing the leaves as the wind is blowing and you just see them just glimmering in the sun. Just notice that.
Yes.
And when you start to notice these things in your life, I will tell you, I remember the moment that happened for me. I remember I was driving and I shifted into being inside my head and just like all the thinking in my head. And I remember feeling my energy drop into my body, just feeling that sense of like, whoa, I just landed. And then I looked up into the sky, and all of a sudden the sky turned like this magnificent blue. And I said to my husband, who was in the car with me at the time, I was like, has the sky always been this blue? Like the colors became more vibrant to me because I was noticing them for the first time because I'd been all up in my head for so long.
That's so amazing.
Mm.
I had something similar happen to me. I've been working on trying to be in the present moment for several years before our paths crossed. And a friend of mine said, Nina, just go to a park, sit on a bench, and look at the leaves. And for somebody who had what I didn't understand, I thought something was wrong with me. And I want to talk about judgment of ourselves, right? I had a lot of unhealed trauma in my body. I had disassociated. I was in a freeze response. It wasn't safe to be in my body. So when she said that, I was like, there's no possible way I can do that. But I tried it. And I remember the park, it was in Dallas, and I walked up and there was a bunch of trees around. And it was kind of like in this circle where the trees were behind us and I could sit on the bench. And I remember sitting on the bench and putting my phone for a 5-minute timer. And I remember struggling to be just there. But I know now it's because our body is sensing the environment for danger. The
Yeah.
body, right? So the body's feeling the danger, like strangers and dogs and all these things. And my mind won't turn off, right? And so I know now that like back then, back then I was judging myself. I was like, I could barely even do it for 5 minutes. And I was so harsh with myself. But now I know that like, oh, 5 minutes is fine. 2 minutes is fine. Like just doing it is enough. But we've got to remove the judgment from ourselves, right? Because we're expecting I don't know, something magical to happen in it, right? When it could be just enough, like you said, to just actually drop out of your mind into your body for 30 seconds. Can you do it for 30 seconds? Right? Mhm.
So I want to share a story. You reminded me of a story of I had just dropped off my daughter at her preschool program, and there was a park across the street from the school that she attended. Now, where she attended would, from an outside perspective, would be considered the barrio, okay, where she was going to school in South Phoenix, and I there was the park across the street had trees that outlined the park space. It's a small little space. It's not a huge park. And there was one particular tree that I, for whatever reason, was drawn to every single day. I would drive by the tree and I would just, say hi to the tree as I was driving by. And some mornings when I had time, I would walk that perimeter. So I would walk around a few times and I would just sit down and lean up against the tree. Well, on this particular day, and it was actually right around the time that I started to really open up my my mediumship abilities. And it was in 2012. And that was when the Mayan calendar had, like, there was lots of shifting that was happening at the time. And I remember having so much energy in my chest. I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know what I was feeling. I've always been intuitive, but being able to connect to spirit was something that was like people who have crossed over more specifically. I didn't know how to do that at that point. And so I had walked around this perimeter one morning and I, for whatever reason, felt like I just needed to stop and lean up against this tree. And I decided to close my eyes, sit down, close my eyes, and actually try to meditate. Now, you have to remember my location. My location would not be considered a safe space. I mean, yeah, I guess if you grow up there, because I grew up in that close to that area, and I always felt safe there. Like I never felt like I was in danger in that space. But as an adult, knowing that I'm not from this neighborhood any longer, it would not be considered a safe space. And so I sat down and I said to the universe, I'm going to need to I want to feel like I need to just sit and kind of drop into this experience and just close my eyes, protect me while I do this. So I close my eyes and I'm in probably 5 minutes and I hear like a dog. It feels like a dog coming close to me. And again, when you're in the barrio, there's often dogs and cats, but dogs just kind of roaming around, right? And so there's a part of me that kind of, I get scared for a second. And all of a sudden, I get this sense of calm just kind of come through me. And I hear the dog approach me. My eyes are closed. And I hear the dog approach me. And then I hear it kind of go against the concrete or the concrete. And so I can tell that the dog has actually laid down. And so after a few seconds, I open my eyes and I see that the dog is lying down right in front of me. And so I close, and it's a pit bull. Of course, it's a pit bull, right? I have a pit bull, love pit bulls, but sometimes, you don't know, and they don't know because they've been so mistreated, right? And so I close my eyes and I just stay in the state of meditation, and I must be there for like 20 minutes, and he's still there with me. And then all of a sudden I hear him like to get up because he's like, doing that. And I open my eyes and he looks at me and he stretches his body out and he sees somebody from the corner of his eye and he just shifts his body and he sits right in front of me and he looks at the person that's coming in my direction. He literally sat there and protected me. Like, and who knows what the person may have just been walking by. I have no idea, but he sat there and he was just like, as he walked by, he just kept watching him. And so then I got up once he was out of sight. I got up and he just turned and he looked at me and he kind of like went like that. And he went walking.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So it's amazing when stuff like that happens. And do I have an explanation for it? I mean, I don't really need to. I just know that he showed up. He sat with me. He like protected me. And then we said thank you and we moved on.
It's so amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very cool thing.
It's so interesting. After meeting you, I went down the plant medicine psychedelic space for healing. And I had this, as you're sharing that, it was reminding me of a time where I don't have a lot of interactions right now with like angels or spirit that feel like 100% sure that's, that was it. Right. And I had this, it was several hours after my first psychedelic therapy session, several hours later, middle of the night. And I was woken up by an angel, I believe. And it was a feather that it was like, imagine a very long feather and the very sharp end is what I believe is she rubbed my arm with. And I was sleeping like this and she rubbed my arm with it and I woke up. But I got the sense of her energy and she woke me up. And she woke me up for something very important. Like I knew that I was gaslighting myself about something. And I needed to sit with my inner child and really work with my inner child. And it was like, I can't remember what time it was, sometime between midnight and 3 a.m. And I got my notebook and I just started journaling and journaling and journaling. And I was up for a couple of hours. I remember being really afraid at first, kind of checking my apartment, right? Like checking the perimeter, like what was that? And that was something that I did all the time back then. So that happened. And then the very next day, I went to the lake. And I remember sharing this with you. I went to the lake and I'm just walking kind of like in a new area on the rocks. They're like pebbles on the rocks, getting close to the water this time. Usually I just stay up on top and just kind of walk on the cement. And I'm walking and I look down. I'm talking also to spirit and I look down and there was a white feather.
Mm.
Yes, there was a white feather and I picked up the white feather and I just knew that like, oh, this angel is here with me now. And I was doing some heavy lifting in that healing space. Heavy lifting. That was my very first time that I had revisited some of the early childhood trauma. And I just felt so protected. And it was the very first, and I would probably venture to say only time I've had such it felt like, I mean, I'm going to say real, but it was real, but I haven't had an interaction to where I felt that energy was right there again. And it really solidified to me that like, I'm not alone here.
Mm-hmm.
And forever, I thought I was alone. I thought we were just here and we weren't being supported by angels or a spirit team. I had no idea like any of that existed. And that's really changed the way I go throughout my days now. Right. I know I'm not walking through my day alone. I know maybe I'm alone right now, but we're technically not alone.
Yeah. What you said about the experience of connecting with or having an experience with an angel and your uncertainty, right? Even when you describe it, you're like, I believe that she was, right? Well, everybody goes through that. Everybody goes through that. When you're first beginning to develop an awareness. Now, the way that I see this is that we all have, we're all surrounded. We are all surrounded. There are angels and there are our loved ones. They're just in a different frequency than we are. We're in form and they're in spirit. And that's why a lot of mediums will say, spirit spoke to me. And they could mean the collective, they could mean an individual, they could mean an angel. But in truth, we all come from this oneness. And so when you're first starting to grow in that awareness, because that's what we are awareness. So when we're starting to recognize that you have, lots of spirit just around you all the time, you start to feel a little crazy sometimes, or like, am I making this up? Am I, because I'm clairaudient. Well, I have all the clairs, but one of my strongest is clairaudient, which means I hear. And so, God, when I started hearing things, I was like, it sounds like me, but I see someone speaking to me. And when I see, it's not out here. So it's not like I'm seeing the person in front of me. I see it back here. It's like peripheral kind of vision. So I'm hearing a dialogue and I see. Now, I don't see people. I see sort of these images, sort of silhouettes. And then, given my experience, my life experience, then I start to put in, I start to see based on my experiences, right? So it's like filling in the blanks based on, my culture, my beliefs, all of those things come into play when I'm interpreting it. But in the beginning, you start to wonder, am I making this up?
Yeah.
Is this real? Is it not? And my advice that I say to folks is just believe that it is.
Okay.
Because the more that you believe that it is, then the more open you become to seeing more things. Now, one of the things I always get really scared of is like, folks, well, because I do have people that I know who have mental illness, like paranoid schizophrenia, and have, where they have visions and they see things. The difference is my relationship with spirit is from pure love. It is always from love. And it is never about me doing unto others. It's about me becoming more aware, living more presently, understanding my divine power to create my reality. It is coming from love for my own growth and understanding. So it's not like I see something or get a vision and now I'm going to go do something to someone else, or in fear, something's going to happen. That's not spirit. That's never, ever, ever spirit. So I always I have this trepidation sometimes when I talk about when you get visions or when you start to hear things, because I know people who hear things, but they hear things like, go pick up the knife and stab him. That's not spirit. Ever.
And it's so good to know, right? Because if it's not love, it is not spirit. It is the ego, right? Yeah.
And it's about my relationship with spirit, my awareness of our collective consciousness, of how we are united as one. But it's not intended for me to go do to people. It's to show up as love and as an invitation, invite people into the experience of becoming aware of who they are.
Yes, which is so good. And I think for newbies into spirituality, like I would consider myself, I'm glad to hear that you hear a voice and it sounds like you, because I think that is what's confusing to me too, because I'm kind of exploring my clairs. Right. And I always say, is the voice you? Is the voice someone else? I don't hear a voice, because when I hear spirit right now, or what I think is spirit right now, it's my own voice. And I'm like, well, shoot, is this me or is this spirit, And so that's good to know that, it's your voice, but you see an image or images, right? And that, as you know, Isela, I'm still working on being able to see images. That is, my third eye seems to be, I'm not going to say underdeveloped, but my creativity and imagination and seeing visions, even here, I'm developing it for sure more now.
Yeah, it's a journey, it's a process. And what's interesting with some people, it's like with me, clairaudience, well, clairsentient is really the feeling part. That's why when I make connections to people, even via Facebook, I feel into their bodies first. And so that's my strongest. And then I hear. So, and I've got clairvoyance as well, but that's like the third. It's not as strong as my clairaudient. And I will tell you, when I first started to open up, I had many indigenous people. I heard chanting, and then one stepped forward and said, "We want to pay homage to the man of the sacred land. We want to pay homage to the man of the sacred land." I would never say that. Like, that is not in my vocabulary. What does that mean? And I kept hearing like chanting and drumming. And he kept saying that, and I kept going, okay, am I crazy? Like, I don't know what is happening right here. And that part, I think, will shut people down. I think people get afraid, especially if you come from a traditional religious background. I grew up Catholic. I explored about 6 or 7 different religions, just trying to find my way. Um, it would freak people out, and sometimes that's what they do. They shut it down. It's like, I don't know what that is. I don't know who's trying to talk to me. And for me, I just came from a place of curiosity. Like, I was trying to, I wanted to hear, and I wanted to know, and I wanted to understand. But that discernment piece is tricky. It takes a little bit of practice.
Okay, I have a question for you about
Okay.
this. First, can you share with me all the clairs? Because I think that I might be clairsentient, and I also want you to share, like, can you help me understand why I'm not accessing those emotions the way that I'm not quite there yet. I'm on my way, but like, can you share the clairs, and then let's talk about that. Like, what blocks us from being able to access them?
Well, the very first thing that blocks us is social conditioning.
Mm.
So all children are born with all the clairs, and people get kind of freaked out when a baby starts to communicate with something that they see over here and over there. And they're like, what is he looking at? What is he seeing? There's something horrible. There's something evil in the house, because we automatically go to that space, right? A lot of us, not everybody. But we are socially conditioned to ignore the things that kind of come natural to us. And then for those of us who come from trauma and who we are in this hypervigilant state of, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? That's actually where our empathic skills come from. So when people say, oh, I'm empathic, I go, oh, you must have had trauma. Right? Now, I know my kid is empathic and she has not experienced any trauma in her life. I think that's because she's naturally been supported through the process of connecting to her body, her emotions, and to the energies that surround her. So it's not that all people have had trauma, but a lot of us, like the bulk of us in my generation, and I would say probably millennials as well, if you are highly empathic, you probably were in an unsafe space at some point in your life where you just were in this constant state of, is mom okay? Is going to be okay today? She's going to freak out on me. Is this horrible man going to come close to me? I don't trust him. It's like we're in this constant state of feeling, right? Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? So I think that plays into it as well. But we all have this naturally built into our system, because in truth, we are simply energy. And so because of social conditioning, we become accustomed to relying on our intellectual way of being. We do not, and I think it's getting better, but we don't really hone in on checking in with our bodies. So I'm going to give you an example. When Gia was little, my daughter, when she was little, when she was eating, I would say, check in with your body to see if you're full. Check in with your body. And then when she would say to me, she'd be like distressed or something, I would say, Gia, check in with your body to see if you might be hungry. Ask your belly, am I hungry? But how many times have our children come up to us and they're like, I'm hungry. And you're like, you just ate. Why are you hungry? You go, you're going to have dinner in a couple hours. And they're like, oh, you must know better than me about my body. Right. Or when they're distressed and upset about something, we go, why are you crying? There's no reason to cry. We were doing just fine 5 minutes ago. And they're like, well, no, in the moment I'm feeling something, but apparently you know more than I do about my body and my emotions. Right.
Yeah.
And so we start to dismiss it. And there's subtleties. I'm not even talking about trauma. I'm talking about these subtle ways that we say, oh, what I'm feeling really isn't important right now. Or maybe you're right and I'm not, right? And so part of the journey of tapping in to our clairs, the energy forces that just are inherent within all of us, is figuring out how to feel what you feel. It's dropping into your body and feeling like being grounded in this space. And even in the spiritual community, a lot of people are like way up here, constantly up here, working off of their, you know, their top couple chakras instead of their whole entire system. And so I think the experience is really about connecting to your whole self. And the way that we do that is in what I call clear the pipes. We clear the pipes because our pipes are full of history, trauma, bias, culture, beliefs, limited beliefs. I mean, there's so many things that get in the way of us being able to access the energy that just flows through us. So clairsentient is I feel. So a lot of people, especially if you have trauma in your back pocket, you might come up and have a conversation with somebody, and all of a sudden you get a feeling about them, or you feel like they're going through something really heavy, or you feel that they are having an incredible experience of life. Dr. Daniel Goleman talks about emotions are contagious. I think emotions are contagious. Have you ever been in a workplace where everyone feels good about showing up at work? It's just kind of contagious. You start to feel good about showing up at work. Opposite is especially true. If everyone hates being there, people are going to, you know, just kind of eat that up and have that same or match that energy. And I think it's more than just emotional state. I think it's an energy. It's an energy that happens. And so clairsentience is when we feel. Claircognizant, and you just know something. I don't know how I know, but I knew that blah, 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 blah. We've all had that to some degree where we just know. The problem is that we don't trust ourselves. So when we know, we second guess it. Do you know that confidence isn't about how you feel about yourself? Confidence is your ability to trust yourself, to trust your emotions, to trust your thoughts, to trust yourself. That's where confidence comes into play. And so a lot of us do that second guessing thing. And then our clairvoyance is to see. And the seeing is different for everybody. So this is one of the challenges I have with mediums who are teaching how to do this. They go, okay, you're going to see this, or you're going to see it out here. Everybody has their own way of doing it. No, there's lots of different ways to experience this journey or this process. And so for me, sometimes I get an image going across my kind of like my visual, the way when you think about something, you might think in pictures. Sometimes I get both a sensation and I see out here. It's like back here. There are also clairs. Clairaudient is to hear. And clairaudient is really about, it's so strange. It's so strange because I'll hear a full-on sentence. Like I'll hear something like the time that we went on vacation to Virginia Beach. I'll hear that full-on sentence. And then all of a sudden I get an image of an elephant. And I'm like, why can't you just tell me about the elephant? Like, why are you like giving me a full sentence and then giving me an image? Because the problem with the images for me is that I have to translate it. And I'm translating based on my own capacity. I've got a human brain with human experiences, with biases, with beliefs, with cultural values, and I'm filtering what I see through all of those things. And that's why really good mediums, including myself, we misinterpret things all the time. And so I always say most of us are like 85% right. Because we're coming through our own faculties, we're coming through our own capacity to understand based on our own experiences.
I've never had a reading from you that was not on point with what I'm walking through. So I think it's really profound. And it's not like simple things that, the readings that I've had from you, they're not like general, they're very specific to what I'm walking through right now. So 85% seems to be like really nice. But like, yeah, I can attest to like definitely having 99.1%.
Yeah. There are some things that, and that's why you'll hear other mediums, we all say this. It may not make sense right now, but it makes sense. Like, and there was this one woman I did a reading for, her grandfather had just passed. She had, I kept saying, he's telling me there's a ring. She goes, I don't know anything about a ring. No, he's insistent. Like I go, okay, maybe I'm hearing it wrong, because I start to kind of go into that freak out place. Maybe I'm going, and I'm still working on that part. I'm like, maybe I'm hearing it wrong. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong. Like I'm like telling her grandfather, make sure you're telling me what I need to say, because she doesn't understand the ring. Fast forward like 2 months, we were together. And I said, oh, I like, she had a ring on a necklace. And I was like, oh, she goes, oh yeah, that was my grandfather's. I was like, mother.
Did you put two and two together? What?
She's like, oh yeah, this showed up like a couple weeks after the reading. And I was like, oh my God. So my lesson was that I just say to people, just hold on to it, because it might come up that there's a ring. Because we don't remember. We like go into paralysis sometimes when we're getting a reading and we don't remember details, because it can feel very overwhelming, especially if you're connecting with somebody who you really loved and who's no longer with you in form.
Yeah, I agree. And then, and that reminds me of another thing that's like totally off topic of this, but one of my trauma responses is flight. And it came to me in a recent somatic intensive event workshop that I went to recently. It came to me, I say it just came to me because like I realized that in conversation with other people, I fly, I flee. And I used to say, I just don't have a good memory. I just don't have a good memory. I could have a conversation with someone and then literally right after I'd be like, what the heck did we just talk about? And I felt a lot of shame about that.
So you check out is what you do. And so you're actually derealization is what it's called, or disassociating. Yeah.
Totally check out. And I noticed it because, in that event, we were supposed to define our like top two, trauma responses that are our go-tos in our body. And so not only do I check out physically, I'll leave, but in conversation with somebody, I can forget. So what I'm working on is being willing to be courageous enough to say, can you repeat what you just said? I checked out. Right. And I'm sharing that because if I can't even be with in conversation, how am I going to be with like listening to spirit? So it's just so profound, this whole process of the emotional body, the emotional state, and changing our emotional state, being able to change it all day long. I have clients that have no idea they're up here, right? I was up here too, right? I was up here for a long time, long time. And now I feel like I'm just scratching the surface to connecting with my body and realizing, oh, I literally left like 2 minutes ago. Right. I don't know where I went, some other conversation in my mind or, a memory or something, but I was gone. And then to bring myself back to my body or to the present moment, I have to use my body.
Right.
Because I got to change my emotional state somehow. Right. Bring myself back. Otherwise, I'll just be gone the whole time.
You know, you bring up something that I think is important that I'd like to talk about. There's a lot in the personal development and in the spiritual community of change your thoughts, change your reality. Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say it all the time too. And honestly, that's where I started. I started from change your thoughts, change your reality, change your experience of life. And I think just the notion of becoming aware that I'm in my hamster wheel of just spinning and spinning and spinning and ruminating on thoughts. But one of the things that you had said at some point was that other people were changing their thoughts and creating a different reality for themselves, but that wasn't working for you, and that you had a lot of shame around that. Can you share a little more about like that experience? Because I think there are a lot of people who feel that way.
Yeah. So I started in the personal development space just on YouTube videos and all the big people like, motivational videos. And I thought, okay, if I just can listen to this every day, I'll feel better. And it changed my state and it was great. It was a great entryway. Then I went into the life coach school. The life coach school is amazing and changed my life. It was my entryway to coaching. It's heavily focused on our thoughts. You can just change our thoughts. And they teach a model that teaches that your thoughts create your feelings and your feelings drive your actions. I still believe in that.
Mhm.
But in the teaching and the coaching, we're so focused on what if you thought something different? And we've skipped that feeling line a lot. And it's like kind of like we're thinking about it in a cognitive, logical way. Thoughts create our feelings, but we're not dropping in. Oh, I thought that thought, and then I had this feeling, and this is how it felt, right? Like literally how it felt. And at the time, I was struggling to feel my emotions. And so we learned how to process our emotions in the life coach school as well. But I could barely feel an emotion for 10 seconds, right? I would just check out and go somewhere else, go scroll on social media, go eat something when I felt something. I never knew, I could barely describe what I was feeling in my body. So I was a coach there for a while and I'm using that model, but I'm noticing that people are creating the results. The people I was coaching are creating the results in their life using this model, like getting new jobs, making more money in their businesses, losing weight, just getting these results. And I'm like, I'm coaching them and I'm not getting results. I'm not feeling better. I'm feeling stuck. That's kind of when our paths crossed. And you mentioned in my reading about my fawning response. And I didn't know what that was at the time. And you mentioned the word complex trauma.
Mhm.
And after I got the reading, and you were mentioning how I would camouflage myself around people and places, and I just had flashbacks to all the times I had done that in my life. All the time since I was a little girl, like 8, 9 years old, I had flashbacks and memories of and all the way where I would do it, where I would be around someone and I was like mirroring them. I wanted to be like them exactly. And one memory I'll tell you, as I was in the reading with you, that came to me was when I was very young, there was a girl that I was growing up with, like maybe between 8 and 12. Can't remember exactly, but I went all through like elementary and high school with her, and then we became cheerleaders. She had a scar on her nose right here, scar right there on her nose. And I would like push my nose up as a kid because I wanted to have that scar on my nose.
Wow.
Right? There's a little emotion coming up with that, just like, maybe shame or something. So I'm noticing that right now. But I started noticing all of it. And then I realized, oh, I cannot heal this from the mind. This is in my body. This is happening without my knowing. Right. And that was one of the responses that you shared with me. And then, so then I had the freeze response also. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh crap, I have been like really shaming myself about not getting these results in my life that other people are getting. But I believe now we have different starting points in life. And that's not to be a victim, not to contribute to a victim mindset. It's just to be aware because like you said earlier, we're awareness. And if we're awareness, We're awareness of our thoughts. We are awareness of the emotions that our body is having. We're awareness of the emotions that our body has stored. We are awareness of it all. And without knowing that, I was just trying to go at it from the thinking mind, just finding a better feeling thought, just a little bit better. And I was disregarding everything from the neck down.
I think that's the natural way of things, because I think that a lot of us have intellectualized, not any fault to our own. I think that's the way we're socially conditioned to intellectualize our experience of life. I mean, our educational system's built on this, the way that we often parent, at least historically parented. I think it's changing now, but it's come from an intellectual understanding of self. And so I think it's natural for a lot of us to want to begin with, how do I just be noticing that I'm thinking horrible thoughts, or noticing that I'm ruminating, noticing that, these are the same thoughts I have every single day, of my life, and noticing how those thoughts impact my body. But then there comes the question, it's that chicken or the egg question, because there are times where our emotions come up from the body as opposed to from thoughts. And so I think modern day psychology and what I call the science of healing really sees them both as significant parts of the healing journey, because we'll be engaging with somebody and all of a sudden we'll have an emotional reaction, and the awareness that I'm now feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, I think is critically important for us to be able to provide then an intervention, right? I can take a moment, I can step back, I'm starting to feel my stomach clench up. If I don't have that awareness, I'm just going to project out. So I'm starting to get this emotional reaction in my body. Maybe it's triggering from something in childhood. And so I'm going to be like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to da 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 da. And so I'm doing that from that emotional space within me. The key is to be able to notice and then do what we need to do to get back into a state of calm, to regulate our nervous system, and then be able to choose. And so it's a married dance between all of the parts of us and all the things going on within us. And so I don't know that I think we all kind of start from this intellectual awareness. And then the more work we do, the better we get at understanding how our nervous system works, how sometimes we get activated. But I think what I want to help people reduce is the feeling of shame around, why isn't this not working for me?
You too. As soon as I found all this out, I was like judging that whole way, and that's ego as well. Like thinking there's a better way, it's a right way, but all of our journeys look different. And that is just another way to feed shame. Oh, I'm so ashamed. And since I've been working with my nervous system and my intellectual self at the same time, but doing some of both, there's that dance. As I've been doing it the same, I've gone from a girl and then a woman who could not dance in public, who could not dance alone in her own house, to I can dance freely. I feel safe in my body. I can dance freely in my home, and I can dance freely in public and with other humans. And that I never thought I could do. I never thought I would feel secure enough or safe enough in my body to do that. And I notice other people feeling that insecurity, and that is driven, for me, it was driven by shame. So to feel free in your body without the shame, it takes a rewiring. You also have to use the brain for that, right? Because it's unconscious self, right? So it takes a rewiring in both places, the body and the mind. And so I think they do dance. They have to dance. And if we're ignoring the body, we're limited. It's not wrong, it's just we're limiting. We're limiting ourselves to healing. And in order to heal trauma, we actually have to access the emotional state in the body, because that's where it's stored. Yeah.
So I want to talk about soul school.
Mm.
So you brought up soul school. I think this was a huge revelation for me, this notion that we come here with the intent to be able to access our consciously access our awareness of our essential being, who we truly are. And I think again, it's one of those things I have trepidation with, because I don't want people to think, because the term illusion comes up a lot, and it's very confusing to people that this is an illusion, and it's kind of like we're a hologram, and it's an illusion. The thing about it is that illusion doesn't mean that it's not real. Illusion means that it's appearing as something other than what it truly is. And so the things happening in the world right now are very real to us. Like they are happening, and there are atrocities happening across the world. We are in very tumultuous times. What's actually happening in the world is we're shifting. We're shifting into the new earth. We're shifting energetically. More and more people are waking up. And what we mean by waking up is that they're becoming aware that there's more than this that we see, that we are energetic beings, that we are divine beings, and that we are all part of a collective experience. And so this awareness and this evolution of us as a collective is what's happening. We collectively are creating what we see. We're creating what we see. And so the power that we have is within each one of us. So the journey is, and I'm an advocate. I've been an advocate. I do anti-racist work. I do anti-bias work. I fully, completely support marginalized communities. I have strong feelings about working with and on behalf of marginalized communities. So it's not that I don't do anything, because I'm called to do things, but I also am very aware that this journey is as much my journey as it is your journey in understanding our power, our divinity, our ability to create our reality. And the more of us who can do that internal work, the better the world will become.
Yes.
Because that's what it comes down to. It's like everyone's trying to impose what we believe needs to happen in order to create, things that need to happen. Well, yeah, there's systemic oppression. This United States has been built on systemic oppression. There are horrible things that continue to happen every day because of oppression and institutionalized racism. They're just a lot of things, right? It's not that those things don't exist. It's that the work is really an internalized experience. And as the more work we personally do, the more we are able to create change. So it's an inside out job, not an outside job.
I totally agree with that. And just before we end, I want to speak to that internal oppressor. Right? Along my healing journey, I have found that I had an internal oppressor part, is what we'll call it. This internal oppressor that thought that if I oppress Nina, she'll be safe.
Yeah.
And I had things that I felt like I was needing to do to serve other women in my community. And I just couldn't get past this oppressor part that was trying to keep me small. Let's keep you small and wait here. And, for me, it was childhood trauma where I developed a part of me that says, let's just wait here. Let's freeze and wait here, and mom or dad will come. And that oppressor part came with me on my healing journey and in my life. And then it was holding me back because it thought, I'm just keeping Nina safe. So we all have an internal oppressor, whether it might look like, when you think of somebody who has walked through racism, even my dad has shared stories, his own stories about racism. It might be that just the belief that you're not good enough because of the color of your own skin, right? And it could be that your inner oppressor is holding you back, making you think you're not good enough to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm. All righty. I think as we're doing this, I'm looking at my podcast. I think we should start doing like my podcast together.
Okay,
if you're open to that.
I am. I thought that was really cool. We didn't even have a script.
Yeah. So, I have it sitting over here. It's been up here for a while, but the one that I want to the one I want to do is called our sacred relationship with our children.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that your experience of being estranged from your child, I think could be a very powerful part of the contracts that we come into and why we come into these contracts.
Mm. Yeah, and actually that might be an unfolding of itself for me to actually uncover that as well, because I don't think.
That would, I think, not just be telling, because what I did was I have 6 things that we need to, how you honor your child. But I think that it would be really powerful if, like, we just did this reflective piece.
Maybe we could call it something like um, conversations with, or some cute handle or something.
Yeah, I'll play with that a little bit
Uh,
because I think um I think we could really do this as like a podcast.
Me too. Wow.
We'll just have a topic. I think if we come up with a topic, I'll go through ChatGTP, kind of do a framework for it so that we have a beginning, middle, end, and then we could even because I create, so I could drop even like a worksheet or like an affirmation sheet or something to go with it that people can download, go into my website, and you
Yeah.
can drop it on yours too.
Great.
And
And
then I also need your bio so I can drop that on my website.
I need to create a new bio
Okay.
because I haven't created a new bio that doesn't have weight loss stuff in it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, have ChatGTP create a bio for you.
Yeah. I think we also can, not that we're long-winded, but we share a lot, and I think a podcast is the best format for that. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Okay.
people can speed it up, you know.
What was that?
People can speed it up to their speed that they like. So that's why I like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I will text you then. Let's plan for like next week, actually recording the podcast.
Okay. That sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.